Hi, I'm Colleen, and I've just recently completed the Ancient Wisdom and Coaching course with Coacharya. I have recently become fascinated by the links to different spiritual traditions and spiritual ideas in coaching itself. I've started to realize that coaching has actually been around for years in ancient traditions without being called coaching, I think, really. So I became fascinated by that. And then I'm a real novice in terms of areas of spirituality, very kind of westernized, and have always been very drawn, as you can see, to kind of the spiritual side of particular India. So it was such a wonderful opportunity to learn from somebody who's steeped in the traditions, who really understands Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, all the different kinds of traditions that give such richness to coaching and such a language that we can use, even if you're not teaching your clients about ancient spiritual traditions. However, the language of, for example, suffering or karma or action versus no action, that kind of language is very powerful to use with your clients. Well, I think the reason I chose Coacharya is because their philosophies are deeply rooted in spiritual traditions, and they draw, particularly Ram is unbelievably knowledgeable, but so have been so many of the other trainers and so many of the webinars that I've seen. So it's wonderful to hear about it, but to not really understand it, I needed to get that understanding. And then Kamal, sure. We've met so briefly, but you just sense such a, how do I describe it? She lives and breathes and talks, and her whole energy is just symbolizes what it is that she's talking about. She's so knowledgeable without any kind of showing off about it. She makes links that are just so unique and powerful and straightforward. I'm not really that kind of flowery in my approach. I like a pragmatic approach, and she brings that, the beauty of the spirituality and the pragmatism of what are we going to do with this? How are we going to look at our lives in a way, and how are we going to support our clients to look at our lives in a way that is really useful and empowering for them, but actually talks to the essence of their being and their reason for being and their purpose. So Kamal really walks the walk, I believe. I felt a very strong connection to her, and I really hope to keep that connection. And Coacharya talks the walk and walks the walk as well as an organization, certainly in this kind of approach, I guess. So I love the latest competency that has been put into the new ICF competencies, which is, and obviously it's in the MCC competencies as well, which is about developing yourself, developing a reflective practice, and ongoing training and learning. And so really what this course did is I believe, I love the things that I learned and the wording and the concepts. And like I said, you can translate those into kind of curious questions that you can ask your clients. But I think even more than that, what it really did is Kamal took us through experiences of everything she was talking about. So we do our own reflective practice in the session about my own ego, about challenges that I'm facing and learnings and qualities that I needed to have to face those challenges. So everything she did, she put into, we had to work through it ourselves. And I'm a great believer in that. If we're going to ask our clients to do something, first experience it yourself. So yes, it was massively knowledge building. It was skill building, not to an extent in that we actually practice skills as such, but it's how does this going to influence your coaching style? But the personal wisdom, I don't often get a chance to do that, but I think we need to as coaches. So the personal experience and self-learning, self-awareness from the kind of spiritual angles that she brought into the program was really quite profound. Yeah, so sorry, that's maybe feels a little selfish, and yet I do believe that we have to feed ourselves in order to be present for our clients as well. I think, I mean, obviously I'd say anyone, but there needs to be that willingness to really learn and really self-reflect. So anybody, I mean, I do this work and I give talks on personal development and purpose and meaning and that kind of thing. And yet it gave different language. So I think anyone who wants to develop as a coach a quality, a depth to their coaching, and also anyone who's curious about the spiritual aspect of coaching, because I believe coaching is a sacred space, and it behoves us, especially like ignoramuses like me, in terms of religious and spiritual practices. It really empowers me to get a greater depth of understanding of I'm really an expert in the human psyche and neuroscience, but I wasn't an expert in the soul. Maybe I'm still not, and I never will be, but it gave me that kind of perspective. It was beautiful in that we touched on, I mean, Jungian theory and different ancient wisdoms and even Greek traditions, and we touched on so much. But I think that was the beauty of the course. It's almost like then you've been given this big picture, and you can say, okay, now, well, let me go and do a much deeper dive there, or let me do a much deeper dive there. But if you haven't got the picture, you don't know where to dive. So I think that was really one of the greatest values of the course. And I mean, Komal, as a person delivering it, is beyond exceptional and a beautiful soul herself with great wisdom and knowledge. So very grateful to her.